Welcome to ModCast, a civilization podcast focused on game modding. Rob, R8XFT.
T. Pengolan.
Jan Baruta.
Alpha Shard.
You know, I just had a question pop into my mind. I'm going to jump back to an earlier segment real quick.
You can't do that, Mark. That's editing nightmare. No, go ahead.
But I like creating editing nightmares. It's not my job.
Yeah, I want to put in something else as well after Mark. So go ahead, Mark.
Dan is really good at editing these modcasts. You'll find that we'll rabbit on a bit and we'll think, oh, that won't sound good on the modcast, but actually when he actually puts it together, it'll sound okay.
Yeah, it does.
We can all vouch for that. Recorded for episode 48 with Gilded Duke, Hamble, Framed Architect and Thalassicus.
One of my issues, and one of the reasons I didn't do as much with religion in Gods and Kings was that it wasn't automated. It was a lot of work to, you create a missionary and then you have to manually move them all around the map and try to convert cities and things, and it got tedious to me.
If it were tedious and there was a game advantage or there was a diplomatic advantage, but there really wasn't much advantage to religion other than that one particular belief that gave you tons of gold for followers. That's what I sometimes try for, and otherwise I almost always ignored religion.
I think one of the bigger diplomatic bonuses in the game is for sharing the same religion, so there was that.
That's true. Although I end up just pissing people off even more because they get tired of my missionaries, so
yeah.
It usually just backfires on me.
Yeah.
It has dramatically changed for Brave New World since religion gives a hefty tourism bonus, so that basically ties religion and tourism are now sort of part of the same gameplay. In fact, culture is not really important for Culture Victor anymore. It's really about religion and tourism.
Yeah.
You want to spread religion as much as possible in the early game and then conquer people in the late game to get all their...
Yeah, the tourism mechanic is something I can see myself wanting to turn off a lot of times because even though I sort of like it, also, to be honest, a little bit weird creating great people all the time to create great works of art and stuff like that. I think it's kind of hammy.
I actually like the great people with... All the new Greek people have other options. So you've got, the great musician that can basically do a culture bomb, a tourism bomb. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the great writer who can basically give you a policy with his writing political treaties. I think, works pretty well.
Recorded for episode 48 with Gilded Duke, Hamble, Framed Architect and Thalassicus.
Is there anything in particular that stands out to you about the trade system that bugs you?
Well, do you remember when, this is not in Civ, this is in a different game, but there was an interface where you could go in and you could actually see these are the possible trade routes that you could set up, and you could assign caravans to them, and it was like a process by which you could manage your trade routes without having to say, all right, I've got this unit.
Yeah, well, you can't assign trade routes, but you can check where the best ones are. A screen which details sending to and from cities, how much gold and science and so on it would earn.
Yeah, but what I was thinking was from that area, something similar to what you did with trade, how you took W. Howard's trade and you enabled it so that you could then say, oh, just click on this and it takes me right to the deal screen. And
yeah, or another way to do it could be, here's a trade route and I want to redirect a caravan or something there. So the next time a caravan or a cargo ship is available, please send it along this route that I've decided on.
Or multi-stop trade routes, too, would be nice, too. Be able to say, I want this caravan, an actual route, where I trade this resource for this resource and then trade this one for that one and whatever,
Or, hey, avoid this barbarian-infested area on your route.
Yeah, exclusions or something, yeah.
Though, of course, not having control over the exact route means that we have to put some more effort into clearing out barbarians, so that can be somewhat of an advantage.
Well, it's not that much effort. It's just a checkbox.
Yeah. True. Interface stuff is somewhat more difficult to do than anything else because, some of the interface code is very hard-coded.
Yeah.
But there might be something that's possible.
I just find that what you did with trade before, or diplomacy and trade, really, you took a part of the game that I just wasn't even using because it was just so annoying to use and made it usable.
So cumbersome?
Yeah.
Well, one thing about trade is it depends on whether or not you want to go for tourism, Victor. Because if you're not concerned with tourism, it's really easy to set up trade routes. You just sort it by gold, income, and then pick the best one each time and every time. That's basically what I do. I have all my trade routes coming out of my capital, and then I just say, okay, well, this is the best, and then click there, and then off it goes. It gets a little more complicated if you want to do tourism, because since you get that bonus to tourism for each route that you have with the different leaders, so you got to split up your routes somewhat and manage that. That does make it a little bit more complicated.
Recorded for episode 50 with Rob R8XFT, T. Pangolin, Jan Baruta and Alvashard.
There's a Belgium Civ and...
Well, the Belgian one with the Treaty of London as the UA, I think that's a really excellent idea to have the plantations in neutral territory and the declaration of friendship with the gift of military units.
Yes, that sounds fun.
Yeah, what a really good idea, but what they've also done is they put in that chocolaterie, which gives a unique...
resource?
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for, unique resource.
Yeah, I'm looking through the workshop right now, and I just found another one that has 3 civs in it. The Macals? Howard?
Oh, you're talking about the Mughals, the Indian civs.
Mughals, it is Mughals? Oh, okay. So then the Mughals, Spartans, and Vietnam is a set of 3.
If it's a set of 3, is it Last Sword that's done those then?
You're right about this quality. It looks like Firaxis could have made these. Because I think that was one of the things I didn't like about Civ 4 leader heads, is they were very obviously reskinned or just touched up or slightly changed color of what was already existing. I'm looking at these leader heads, and they look completely different.
I mean, you're right in terms of the Civ 4 leader heads originally. When I started out and I was thinking about doing the Civ 4 leader heads, it was just the case if you played one of the mods that had all of the new leader heads in that people had created, you came across half a dozen Caesar lookalikes, a few Gandhis, and like you say, they did look very obvious. I have to say, though, some of the creators of Civ 4 did a way better job than I ever could have, and there's some leader heads out there that you can't really tell where they originated from. There's one of Alexander the Great, for example, that I think a few creators got involved in, and that is very difficult to tell where it originated. They did a marvellous job with that, absolutely stunning. But you're right, when it started out, certainly, it seemed to be a lot of just reskinned copies. And that's probably one of the things that put me off, because at the time I was doing okay with my leader heads with Civ 3, and I couldn't do the same for Civ 4, because it was just reskins. And for me personally, what I created wasn't up to scratch, but other creators have come in later on. Took a few years, I think, for it to get to that standard, but there certainly there's some leader heads out there that are fairly good. Recorded for episode 58 with Rob R8XFT, Jan Baruta, Alfashard and Framed Architect. ModComp. It's not been done for a long while, but I do believe there was one in the very early days which made city-states able to yield a settler and able to have a second or third city.
Yeah, I had this one for a while. It was quite fun.
Yeah.
They took up a lot of space, actually, but they turned into nice little 2 or 3 city civilizations, like the minor civilizations they were meant to be.
Did they become civilizations, or did they...
Well, no, they stayed as city-states, so you had the same interface. They just expanded and had little empires and were a little stronger and tougher to conquer.
Yeah, that's a fairly simple, straightforward database mod. You just simply have to remove the civilization unit class override for minor civs that they can't build settlers, and that's easy, and that's one line of code. And then add a couple city names, because otherwise I think they're just named city or something like that.
They draw the city names randomly from all the city name lists from all civilizations, so they are random like the Hunnic one.
But you can assign city-states to have additional city names. That's actually quite easy.
Yeah. That would be cool, actually.
Because I was considering of having something like that in my mod as well. But I think you'd have to make it so that the settlers were quite costly and that they were unlikely to actually build, or less likely to build them, or had some sort of desire not necessarily to expand too quickly, so that they would only build maybe one, at tops 2 extra cities.
Do minor civs have flavors? I don't think so.
They do.
There's a minor civs flavors table, but I think that table controls the way player AIs prioritize befriending and allying those minor civs. I don't think it controls the minor civs AI's ability or desire to expand, for example. I don't know how that would be controlled.
I thought that they had. You know, when you see the table for whether they're cultured or whatever, there's some flavours under there. Are you saying that those flavours match up with the civilizations rather than them talking about?
The assumption, of course, is that the minor civs don't play the game. They sit there with one city. That's not that hard. Now, of course, you could control that with Lua. You could say, build a little AI program to say, well, if you have 5 population in your city and you have less than 3 cities, then build a settler. Otherwise, don't build a settler. That would be quite easy. But I think you would have to do that yourself.
Right. It's a thought.
Yeah, in regards to Anno Domini, it would help with the historical maps.
Yes.
Where you have a lot of free space between major civilizations. So those minor ones having 2 or 3 cities would help out fill the blanks and provide quite a bit of extra challenge for the human player.
Yeah.
Or targets for the AI.
You could well do. Although I am going to go down the way of splitting some of those civs very soon in that mod. So,
Rob, in your Anno Domini, do you increase the number of minor civs that are on random maps? On your random map generation, do you have any control over the number of miners that are founded?
In what sense? It's just the same as the normal game as far as I know. I've got more than what was in the Epic game, I think. And the slider goes to a certain number depending on how large the map is.
Well, that would be 62 minus 24.
63 minus 22.
Yeah, it is about the
22 civs, you're right.
It's 41 minor civs that are available in a normal game.
I've got more than 41 that it could choose from.
And I think there's a game defined that actually allows you to set the number of minor civs that can pop up in any one game. I think you can increase that beyond what the slider says.
Right.
And I think there's a way to control how many miners are spawned with each game setting. For example, I don't think you're tied to, the default setting of 12 or whatever it is for a standard map. I think you can up that if you wanted to.
On the slider, you can increase it anyway because, again, I play with small maps, so I can opt to choose for as many city-states as I wish up to that figure of 40. It's just that on the smaller maps, there'll only probably be 1 or 2 that's actually created. So it realises there isn't room enough to have 40.
Well, the idea is that as modders, we can control how that pans out, right? We can say, well, no, we want a full map. Let's make it that way.
Okay.
I just wondered if you had done that.
No.
That might be an interesting thing to push in there. Of course, there's that slows down gameplay and stuff, but it might be something interesting. You might have to reduce the tile distance between cities to actually fit in that many. Otherwise, you'll have settlers standing around.
Yeah, certainly food for thought. Recorded for episode 61 with Rob, RHXFT, T. Pangolan, Jan Baruta, Alpha Shard, and Gazebo. With Anno Domini at the moment, I found I was way above the limit for Steam to actually upload it as a mod.
And what's that, by the way, just out of curiosity?
100 meg. So I had to streamline it in some way. And what I've actually done is taken out all the civs. So I've got like a base pack, and then you've got all packs that have civs that go together. For example, you've got a pack with all the Greek civs, you've got a pack with all the Roman Britain civs, and so on and so forth. There's about 15 packs altogether. Having taken all the civs completely now out of the base game makes it so that it's a little bit more user-friendly, or user-compatible, I should say. So someone can play the whole mod just as Greek civs, or just as Roman civs, or whatever. The mod now comes with events and decisions for all civs. So as I'm putting the civs back, I'm reverting in a lot of cases to the original civ as it's been downloaded from Civ Fanatic or Steam, and I'm making sure that each one has got 2 unique decisions to go with it as well. Obviously, the Mercenaries mod is been built into the game as in addition to Plague and the Slavery mod that Luigi had. I'd love to get the CPP in there somewhere, but it's just there's just too much there that doesn't match Anno Domini, so I think it would be quite a...
If you get an idea of what you like, I could always make a scaled down, like a CBP light, if you will.
Yeah, well, that'd be very kind of you. I mean, I think the main thing is the diplomacy bit.
Okay, so from like the community patch element?
Yeah. So is that. I guess that if there were any generic sort of improvements to the AI, that would be good.
Yeah, all of that is built into the community patch, and it should be compatible with Anno Domini.
Okay, I'll give it a go and see what happens. What happens as well when I'm actually updating the mod, of course, for example, Framed Architect will come out with a new version of Health and Plague, so I have to rewrite my version of Health and Plague because I've had to change it so much to match Anno Domini, because certain buildings don't exist, for example, in the mod, and other ones do. And likewise for some of the other ones like Mercenaries, I've had to data to go along. So it makes it a lot of work when that happens. There's quite a lot in there now. I mean, there's about 100 techs, and each of those have got at least 3 or 4 things that are associated with that tech that you can either build or have within the game, or a change or something you found. And I've tried to make it still sort of engaging, and I think I've sort of succeeded with that based on the feedback. I've recently put in the Zealot, which is stolen completely from Pontiac, with that said, because I've stolen a lot of the good stuff from other mods.
Well, yeah, absolutely, it's completely allowed. I mean, that's the mod for you. I'm under the impression that everyone should be working together with their code. I mean, most of our Colonialist legacies definitely wouldn't ever got off the ground if we didn't steal snippets of code from Last Sword.
Well, yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to steal the code from we created. So
exactly.
It's the circle of mods.
It's a circle of mods, circle of life. It's Secret Tax code, but I've adapted it for the Zealot, and basically what they can do, it's an additional religious unit. So I wanted something up over and above the 2 that you normally get. And this one you buy with faith and can only buy with faith, but he will actually go into a city-state, and he will incite war against one of your rivals. But you've got to be at war with that particular rival. But you can send him into a city-state to get them to go to war with them as well.
It's so fun just to have proxy wars where what you do is you just donate like some high-quality units to a city-state halfway across the world, and then you send over a Midyu or a Zealot and get them to declare war and get them to completely overrun just their neighbouring civ, and it's just so much fun.
That's just something else to the game, and it's like all these things that JFD comes out with. Mercenaries was just an excellent idea, I thought, and it just fits so well with Anno Domini as well. I've obviously made it so that it is era-specific, but it's just added another dimension to the mod. So, in addition to all that, I'm just sort of tidying things up now. So, I've used some of the era splashes from JFD's Cultural Diversity so that I can get those a little bit more in the Anno Domini era. So, that looks a little bit nicer now. Feedback is good that I'm getting. So, hopefully, that will be finished, he says, into the new year.
Sounds great.
Yeah. One thing that's happened just recently, it's quite funny, really. Because of the demise of Atomic Gamer, I've had to use Dropbox. Now, Dropbox has got a limit of something like about 30 downloads for the size of the mod per day.
Really?
Yeah, because of the size of the mod. It's something like 20 gig it allows, but because of all the stuff in it.
How about Mediafire or something like that, or Google Drive?
Well, I'm going with, I've forgotten what they're called now. There's another one that I've made aware of that's pretty good. And
you heard of this new Mega upload? I heard it's very good.
Yeah, we use Mega now for the CPP because it was. My Dropbox got they temporarily banned me or censored me because I was using Dropbox, and a streamer streamed the CPP. There was a rush on my downloads folder, and they just cut me off, and so I had to find a different way. So Mega has been pretty kind thus far.
However, with the cut-off, because it comes back after a day or so, there's been more of a demand for Anno Domini, because all of a sudden people are saying, well, God, I can't get hold of it, I need it.
Artificial demand. I like
Absolutely. And so the more it becomes, because it's been blocked off something like 5 times in the last 2 weeks. So every time that happens, someone else comes along, I can't believe that I can't download this mod. You know, people are thinking, it must be good then if you just can't get to it. Well, really, it's not that much traffic. But
you could make a new version of it, delete the old version, and then when everyone claims the old one back, come out with Anno Domini Classic.
Yeah.
Really boost demand that way.
And make everything sepia-toned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Include lots of orange and teal and some lens flares too, maybe.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean,
Anno Domini revitalized HD, 3D,
well, it's
4K.
just like, for example, Salamander brought out 20 French wonders, and there's 3 of those that fit straight into Anno Domini, so those have gone straight in. I wasn't imagining that I'd have more content. I thought that was all kind of done now, it's just re-adding the civs. But it's funny how you come across new things that people have done, and think, yeah, actually that could just be something else. And so there we go. It took me about an hour to pop them in. Recorded for episode 61 with Rob R8XFT, T. Pangolin, Jan Baruta, Alpha Shard, and Gazebo.
One thing that I've tried to do with the CP is I've added in a lot of elements for tables, SQL and XML elements, so leader abilities and stuff like that you might find interesting.
I hadn't realised that you changed a lot of the leader abilities, so that's certainly one thing I'll go back and have a look at. You know, I think I've missed a trick there.
Yeah, and all of those things, you can essentially emulate whatever's in the CBP with using just the CP and just bring it over, and it'll work in whatever you need. One of the ones I like a lot that people seem to enjoy is Portugal's UA now gives you the ability, whenever a trade unit you own moves, you gain a yield. So in Portugal's case, they gain great admiral points if the unit is a cargo ship, and great general points if it's a caravan. Kind of as the more trade units you have and the more they move, the more you get of those passive bonuses. So it's kind of a fun little...
Cool.
Yeah, it's a neat little concept.
I always love trade concepts like that. Any civilization or any aspect that adds weird, cool stuff with caravans, like JFD's merchant barge was really cool. I thought that was fantastic.
It was something new.
You know the merchant barge that JFD has, when it's used as the cargo ship replacement for ships up?
Yes.
I don't want to attempt to pronounce the name.
Yeah. But it defaults back to the cargo ship, doesn't it, in the game?
Yes.
So you don't actually see the graphics. However, what I've done is I've used his graphics for that cargo ship for one of the other ships that I didn't have graphics for in-game. It's actually got a use now. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
I wonder why it defaults to the standard model.
I'm not sure what that is. That must be...
Yeah, there's some weird stuff there. I mean, I think at one point wanted to have like a special ability where your caravans and cargo ships gain a line of sight. Greenland mod, but I think that just doesn't work.
I added that. It's a building function now for one of the corporations in CBP gives your trade units line of sight.
Oh, cool. So does that require actually a DLL at all?
Yes, it is DLL based, and you just use the DLL, and then it's an XML element of a building. You just set it true or false. I also added the ability if you can't plunder them anymore, and then also one that changes their movement speed so they can move faster.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, I always really like things that alter the trade. Like, we have Afghanistan, we have a unique improvement, and whenever a caravan moves over that unique improvement and generates great rider points, which represent the massive amounts of Afghan poetry along the Silk Road, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like that idea a lot.
Whenever you see some really cool trade abilities, it just makes you look at Morocco and Portugal and it just makes you sad. Because it could have been so much. When you just see like the really, really creative traits that modders have come out with and just the plain vanilla traits that Praxis included, it just makes you kind of weep because it's so easy to design and formulate these things.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why developmentally they went that direction with the more basic UAs.
Yeah, you've got to remember they were programmers, not historians, really. So over time, people that have got that historical sort of knowledge and basis have thought this would be a good idea for that civ and then sought a way around it, whereas I don't think they had that.
Yeah, and Civ 5 was primarily designed at its core as a competitive board game.
Yeah.
So they really wanted to keep everything simple to emphasize the competitiveness aspect.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess so, but I still love the funky sort of unique things that modders have come up with, that just like simple tweaks that you wouldn't see in the base game at all, just from unique civilizations.
Yeah, I get a vibe that a lot of players who play modded civilizations aren't really competitive. They just want to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
So...
and experience something unique.
Yes, definitely that.
Yeah, when we create civilizations, there's two different ways we could do it. Each is we go, okay, we have this civilization, let's research it and then figure out mechanics that can apply to it. Or the most recent way we've been designing civilization is, all right, Neri, what's some weird lure crap that we can get away with, and what civilizations can we apply it to? So we've been having so much fun with that. Just like, okay, what if we had a civilization that could potentially do this and this and this and this and inspire revolutions all around the world? Like, hey, we could put that with Cuba and just alter it a bit so it's historically relevant and just do some really weird stuff. And that's how, like, the Anishinaabe came about. Like, what if we had a civilization that was built for proxy wars or built for snow settlement? It's fun.
It's the old, it's not a bug, it's a feature rule.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's Goat Simulator in a nutshell.
EU4 in a nutshell.
Yeah. EU4 or Euphoria? Didn't hear that. Is that just the same thing? Mutually exclusive?
That is similar.
Recorded for episode 64 with Rob, RXXFT, T. Pangolan, Jan Baruta, Alvashard, Narai, and Sukratat.
I've seen the unique, the enhanced modding screen.
I've got it just up now because I was going to ask you about it.
I've been using it for a while, actually. I never got around to releasing it because it actually is still an alpha. There's a couple of issues. The major one, honestly, is the fact that if you modify anything in your mod folder currently, it won't automatically refresh. Right. But otherwise, I'm sort of really proud of it because I think it's a much better system than what the vanilla one.
Absolutely.
It's pseudo DLC, so like it's like the enhanced user interface, and it replaces the modding screen. The screen that you get, select mods, and like here's a list of your mods, and this is what you have activated, and blah blah blah, and so forth.
So what you're saying is it's the thing that every mod player in Civilization has dreamed of since before they even knew Civilization existed.
Yes.
More or less. It makes activating deactivating mods a lot easier because you get a search bar. You can search your mods now.
I'm in awe.
If you know a bit of Lua, you can also make your own custom filters. So like my favorite mods, and you can have a list of like this mod, this mod, this mod, this mod, and when you select that as a filter, it just shows the mod that you put in the filter.
I just have to say this. One of the things I've been playing around with lately, but I don't have anything really on the roster, has been a few little enhancement gameplay mods. Just little things. The only one that I've actually released for public consumption is the Wonder Randomizer. So it takes all the wonders that you have in the game, and it says, well, we still only want there to be, say, 7 wonders in the Ancient Era, so we'll just only choose 7 random ones out of however many there are. And it continues doing that throughout the game. But in order to test this, I had to download 200 wonders. So I have all the more civs wonders and other wonders that I've downloaded as well. So now that original screen has like 700 mods in it. And let me tell you, it's almost stopped me from playing Civ at all because setting up games is just... So this is a godsend. Just as a question here as well, I'm just looking at the pictures. Where you have the references button, it looks like you've got like an enable button. So are you saying like that if a mod references another mod or needs another mod, that you don't actually have to find the other mod? It just...
You can just press the button and enable from there. That was like my first thing because I was playing with a lot of JFD Cips and they were like, oh, this references this and this references that and this needs this and this needs that. I'm like, I don't want to look around for these things. I just want to click the button.
Right. This brings up the question again, which is, and I'm just going to say this, of all of the people, this includes T-Pang, that I know in the modding community.
Am I in trouble?
The person who I think most deserves to be hired by Firaxis is Sukrit.
Definitely.
Events and decisions, rebuilding the mods thing, what else is next? Why I say that is, all of us can come up with more content for mods, but somebody who can actually think of designing game structures that don't exist in the system. Like, I'm looking at this, and it's more than just, oh yeah, I improved the mod system by allowing it to have a search engine. Great. But it's actually well thought out. It's just fantastic. You should go into UI design.
Another thing I've been working on, this isn't released yet, the work in progress. I have been working on an event creator.
An event creator? I was in like you just kind of just put your parameters in and you just put in your text and your pictures and it just auto creates it for you.
More or less, it's like UI, so you can create stuff so you don't have to code. Basically, I got too lazy to code, so I coded something that would code for me. You put in your parameters, and there are a couple of things like you can just drag and drop, and you can just make an event out of these little bits and pieces instead of having to code it by hand. Right now, it works for a basic functionality, so like you can like this costs this much, and you just drag it in, and it'll do it for you.
What somebody's done is they've created a civilization generator, essentially. You put in all of your lore, your text, your unique units and stuff like that, and I mean, sure, you need to put in your own little adjustments, but it has a whole bunch of traits that you can select and has its own little hex color picker, and it's all done on this website, and then you can just download it as a package and load it up in-game, and you've created your own little civilization.
Recorded for episode 64 with Rob, RXXFT, T-Pangolan, Jan Baruta, Alphashard, Narai, and Sukratat.
What are some of the weirdest and worst Steam comments that you've seen on your mods?
That Jan's drawings must be from a 5-year-old. That was one of the comments. Obviously, somebody
wow.
do it. And it was like,
trolls are everywhere.
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
I just got one recently that was on the Australian civilization. It just said, "You are a disgrace to the Aboriginal race." Like, what? Where did that come from? What does this mean? Oh, man.
I got a comment on Anno Domino, which was, I know there's 82 civs, but there should be more. It's like, what?
Well, and you can't argue with that.
No.
We need 10 more rushes.
The worst ones for me, because they're always the hardest ones to take, is like T-Pang said, you're a disgrace to the Aboriginal race. I'm not a member of the Aboriginal race, so how am I a disgrace to a race that I'm not a member of? That's confusing to begin with. Additionally confusing is the one that, for me, I will always remember is the guy that got mad because we called the Blackfoot and not the Blackfeet. And my reply, trying to be patient about it, is the Blackfeet are not the same thing as the Blackfoot. They're actually a subset. There's a Blackfeet people, but the Blackfoot Confederacy contains the Blackfeet, but they're not the same people. Assuming that this guy is not, just an internet troll, claiming to be a Blackfoot, I should add, or a Blackfeet, I should say. The lack of knowledge of his own culture was alarming, and he was like, no, you have to call us the Blackfeet, not the white man name. And I'm going, Blackfoot is English. We could have called the Civ the Nietstabi, and Last Sword did. They're the same people.
I can remember a comment on one of my Civ 3 civilizations. Back in those days when you're trying to get the city list, because there were so many cities in Civ 3, it's not like Civ 5 where you don't seem to create as many. You're looking for a Civ list of about 60 cities, so you're really sort of scraping the barrel with some of them. So I remember with Illyria, I'd gone for a couple of more modern-day cities as the later ones, which seemed fair enough to me, because it was in the same...
Oh, you opened the Balkan can of Pandora.
Oh, my word. I'd insulted people because of that. How dare you? How could you? We're not associated with that civilization. We're true Illyrian. And it was like, what? Just so unwittingly can insult people when you're trying to do something that you think inherently take or leave. You should do in your free time. It just seems amazing.
Well, and I mean, it's always a concern of mine when we're building mods that it's possible, because you are being so reductionist, right?
Yeah.
In your mod, you're going from eons of history and just getting reduced down to a couple lines of code, and that's the nature of it. I mean, we don't want to live in a world where we have to build every single unit and rebuild the tech tree every time to say, what did these people have? Someone's going to get annoyed.
Yeah. Although something like Secret's events and decisions just allow you to put in extra things that you couldn't fit into the unique building, unique ability in the unique building, or the unique unit, I should say. So at least with things like events and decisions, you get the chance to include some of the other things in the history that, you had to make a tough decision maybe for a unique unit between one or another thing. At least you can build the other thing into a decision or an event. So at least they get a mention.
Yeah.
Recorded for episode 66 with Rob RXXFT, Jan Baruta, Alphashard, Narai, and Marbazir.
Did you ever do a sieve that the popularity of which really surprised you? And do you have any takeaways from that for your future decisions? Will it affect your future decisions what to do in Civ 6?
So the answer to that is all of them. I didn't expect it to become popular at all.
That's a bit of a cop-out answer.
But there's a couple of things that we learned that worked really well, and I think we would try to duplicate that. One of which was that just by sort of fluke, when we released the Kree, their loading screen, which was voiced, which isn't a huge thing anymore, but it was at the time, mentioned that they were constantly at war with the Blackfoot, and that Poundmaker had been raised by the Blackfoot. And also they were at war with the Inuit. And then we released the Inuit, and they kind of mentioned, well, there's the Kree, and there's the Dene. And then we released the Dene, and they said you were at war with the Kree and with the Inuit. And then we had the Blackfoot, and they mentioned the Kree, right? So that sort of like created this to be continued feeling.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
So that became a thing. And that was a really good thing to develop. The Dene kind of came out of nowhere as a surprise because when we released them, they were not popular at all. But they are kind of like the cult classic. When we would talk to Colonialist Legacies players, they will all say, the Dene are my favorite. And yet they didn't do very well. And it's not until we started releasing more mods that they started picking up. People would look at the Dene and go, it's a girl that somebody ripped out of Assassin's Creed. I've never heard of this mod before. I've never heard of this people before. And they like music. But then as people started to really respect the First Nations mods, then they wanted to have them all.
Right.
So the thematic grouping of peoples, I think, helps.
Yeah, I mean, in some way, you definitely created further demand for these kinds of scenes. I have no doubt about that.
Well, in regards to popular mods, you can get a more popular mod on the workshop than a Hitler mod.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have all the Indians than...
But I think part of Hitler's popularity is because he has his leader scene.
As well. And it's 3D and he uses Haile Selassie's animations. And speaks like Bismarck. When you take a look at the most popular mods, you have Hitler, which was released in Gods and Kings, but not immediately. And there are the Goths by Tom Effect, who were released immediately after Gods and Kings came out. And they are consequently on top of the most popular rankings. Also, the More Civilizations Nazca were very popular.
Yeah, I played that one.
Recorded for episode 66 with Rob R86FT, Jan Baruta, Alpha Shard, Narai, and Marbazir.
What was the civ that you spent the most time on, and why was it the Kree?
Okay, so technically, the civ that I've taken the most time on ever that's been released, that would be probably the Wabanaki. I actually built them twice with two completely different directions over time. A big part of them was I was trying to figure out how to solve the unsolvable problems of Civ 5. Because there's a number of things that modders simply cannot or could not do. And one of those was the ability to make a unit have like a on-hit effect. If a unit attacks another unit and you want to make that other unit poisoned, well, you can't. You just can't. Well, you actually can, but the traditional way of doing that was based on the animation event. And if you have quick combat on, then it goes away. So,
okay.
You know, it would be
I
no
always
good.
face with quick combat.
Right, so it'd be no good for me to be like, oh, this unit can poison other units. And then it doesn't because you're playing on quick combat.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the general community at large did not want to give up quick combat for mods.
Yeah, I can't blame them.
So part of the Wabanaki build involved creating a way to listen for attacks that you could use it, and the AI could use it too. You could use it when you couldn't see the unit that was doing it, because that's also a thing where it just doesn't work because the UI doesn't know that or doesn't care that there's a unit attacking because it's off screen and it's black. You can't see it. But you still want the Mongols to have that ability, or whoever it was, to have that ability when they're on a different continent and you haven't discovered them yet. So that took a lot of work of trying things and them not working, and trying things and them not working, and trying things and them not working. Although Colonialist Legacies has at least on one occasion built a script that works 90% of the time, and therefore stuck the word "a chance" on hit.
I like it.
People think it's random.
I like it. If you can't fix it, make it a feature.
But the Wabanaki one, I didn't want that to happen. I built that, and it took that, I think, by itself took like 3 weeks of doing it a lot. My wife was already starting to get annoyed at me by then because all my free time. Now, our son wasn't born yet, but she was already still being like, what's going on? Because I was spending a lot of evenings on that. And I used to spend a lot of evenings up to a Civ launch and then kind of stop, and then lots of evenings up to a Civ launch. And that was sort of a thing. I had almost completely built them, and then I developed the ability to actually track this stuff, which let them have their unique unit that is a boat that the first time it attacks another boat, it will lose 40% of its health and take over that other ship. Just like that. And since then, we've been able to reuse that combat listener in a number of places. The Tlingit use it. Uyghur Caesar's Apache have the best use of it ever. They have a unique unit, a renegade, that if it attacks a unit that has a civilian stacked on top of the unit, it will kill the civilian. It's like the greatest jerk move of all time.
So it will kill a great general, for example.
Yeah, they have assassins. They shoot the general. If you're escorting a settler, well, now you aren't.
Right.
And workers are dead, and great people are dead. And when he did that, I looked at him and are you kidding me? Like, I came up with this idea, and I thought it was really cool. But somebody's now gone and made something out of it that's way more than I would ever think. It is, and I really hope it's possible to do combat listening in Civ 6, because can you imagine doing that in Civ 6?
Especially with the great people having abilities and stuff.
Yeah, you just...
but then in Civ 6, there's also the core and the army functionality where you can combine 2 or 3 units into kind of one entity.
Right, and if the Apache could, uncombine by killing off portions of that combined entity, that would be an incredible ability. Way more than it is in Civ 5. So that's the Civ that's out that's taken the longest. As I mentioned before, the one that I'm working on right now, the Coast Salish, on the books for 2 or 3 years now. And what happened with them is I built them. They were an experiment in making a very simple Civ to see if I could build a simple Civ where their unique ability is like 4 lines of code.
Right.
And it ran into the dreaded problem of we can't find a 3D model for this unit, and has done nothing ever since. And then finally, out of frustration and desperation for not having done anything for 2 months, I decided to reskin the Garamantes model.
And this can be done.
By the way, just to put this in perspective, I used MS Paint.
You can do anything as long as the end result works.
Well, the benefit I have is that in Civilization 5, the resolution of both the skin, which is 256 pixels by 256 pixels, and then the game, no one can actually tell that your model is crappy.
Hey, if it works, it works.
But all that to say that in Civ 6, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, probably not.
People will notice.
Support the ongoing Polycast Patreon campaign.
Collective achievements.
Personal incentives.
Month-to-month commitment.
For more information, visit thepolycast.net/Patreon.
Calling today. In North America, the number is 301-637-7659. In Europe, 44121-288-7659.
The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
For more information on ModCast, log on to the series' official website at thepolycast.net.
When we first designed the Blackfoot, I was fascinated with the idea of the counting coup thing that is a big part of the warrior society in the Blackfoot where they actually gain personal rank and stature among other people, possibly even becoming the chief of the tribe, based on not the number of enemies that they kill, but the number of enemies that they touch and live to tell about it.
They're playing tag.
Yeah, they will play tag, and the story is how they get judged on it. This is counting coup. So what happened was I built this into this like really complicated system of game upgrades, character upgrades, where you get different promotion ranks based on how many enemies you've attacked, separate enemies on your characters. And there was like a list of like 10 of them. And as you'd level up, your character would get different culture bombs, and they eventually become like a great general, and then they become a great artist as well as a great general, in addition to being whatever it is that they already are. And we looked at this and tried to figure out how we were possibly going to say this is a UA, and then how somebody was possibly going to comprehend how to do this. We dropped it down to about 3 ranks, and then we announced that, and everyone went, that's way too complicated. And somebody said, why don't they just get XP for standing next to enemy units?
Yeah. Works.
And I went, oh yeah, delete everything, just go back down to this one sentence. But then we couldn't leave it there, so we had to shove this thing about standing on top of Buffalo on top of it.
I would say that the one Civ that I would love to see in Civ 6, it's never been done before and probably won't be done, is Illyria.
It would be very obscure. It would be the Venice of Civ 6.
Yeah, it would be.
That'd be your dark horse.
It would
right
be,
there.
but I think the piracy with Illyria, having ships that could sneak up in secret and be quite a good sort of naval Civ, I think that might appeal.
I don't know which era Illyria is in.
It's the ancient era. It was...
Balkans.
You get like triremes that are submarines.
They had Lemby.
I only know Illyria from... That's the ancient civilization, that's the Balkans.
Also, they are mentioned by Shakespeare. It was the traditional enemy of Rome, but a naval enemy, and ruled by Teuta, a female, so that made it even worse, stealing all this stuff from their ships. Yeah.
Mm.
If only there was a civilization that had ships that could steal other ships.
Buccaneers.
No, I'm thinking Wabanaki. Buccaneers do that too.
I guess so. I mean, that's their unique unit. It's just prize ships because they just have a unique privateer. Basically like a ship hunter / stealer. We have these people on canoes. So although the unique unit moves a bit slower and at a much weaker combat strength, the first enemy ship that they see, basically they can capture it and salvage it for parts in their own capital.
Mm.
There is a cap on it. Both units will take a ridiculous amount of damage in addition to simulate a boarding party fighting back. They take about 40% damage in addition to whatever damage they would have taken from the combat. If that 40% damage would kill either boat, then the ability just doesn't go off in the first place. So it's not like you can keep a couple of these in your back pocket, wait for the modern era, ambush someone's submarine, and steal it. Although if you do manage to like upgrade this thing without ever firing off its ability, all the way up to being a destroyer, then you might be able to pull this off.
It only works once, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For each unit? Yeah.
Your best use of this is in the early game, is to prevent somebody from a naval rush. Because if they do, then you can turn the boats go back to your cities.
Into production.
And
which you can use for infrastructure, like defensive infrastructure. Yeah. So you can use it for like rushing units, rushing defensive buildings. So it's really nice, sort of, if there were the naval equivalent of the Zulu in the area. It's a good idea.
With Civ 4 diplomacy and the World Congress, now you made me forget. You always do that.
Well, that's a sign of age when you start blaming other people.
I'm old. I admit.
Like some of the ideas, I'm really sorry I can't say anything right now. But I really want to, but I don't have anything to show.
Let me keep talking about what I can't talk about.
Yeah.
But it's going to be awesome, though.
I wish there was a mod comp to bring back the Civ 2 advisors instead of the ones we've got at the minute. So, I mean, maybe we could do a modcast where we really ham it up and become those advisors. I don't know. Maybe we could do the sound bit for it at least.
Yeah, why not? I have a silly accent. I can be the foreign advisor.
You could be. Absolutely. Maybe it'd be good to have some advisors that gave you poor advice. And threw you off. You threw you off track.
That actually could work for maybe something like Faerun, where they have doppelgangers. Maybe one of your advisors has been taken over by a doppelganger.
You should give this city to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Your science
Or they
advisor.
could do it like we've said before in the typical internet way these days of, I've got 10 things to tell you about what you need to do. Number 4 will blow your mind.
Your science advisor says,
Science is an absolute zero.
Jet's sitting behind me cracking a whip every time. Get this motto. Get this motto.
Hey,
Get this motto. I haven't actually played a game of Civ in 2016.
It's a fetish thing, guys. Don't worry about it. It's,
Surprised me when I heard you guys say, "Oh, we don't know anyone that plays multiplayer, really." And I was like, "How do you not know Dan? How did that happen?"
What do you think of when you think of Civ? Sid Meier and Dan Q. Oh, well, yeah, okay, obviously. Right?
Well, Dan Q is one of the guys who I think is the end game scorer, Dan Quayle.
Yeah, Dan Quayle, yeah.
So yeah, Dan Q.
Recording dates were assorted from 2013 to 2016.
Well, I am still recording, so I could edit it so that, you say that anyway. So
Not only that, but he has your voice, saying that word now. He can use it anywhere he wants.
He does have Mark recorded saying, "So what are you doing later?" So he can use that wherever he wants.
Yeah. I can add a few to that if you want. What are you wearing?
Civilization 4 and 5 sound clips, copyright Take-Two Interactive.
I think we did a good episode. It was fun.
Informative.
I had to do some editing there.
you're only slightly biased, Scott.
What?
You were on it.
Yeah.
I thought the guests were incredibly witty.
I listened to the previous one, and that one was good too.
Copyright Civilized Communication at civcom.net.